The Defiant limped through the void, her hull scarred by the exodus from Earth. 3 years of desperate flight had brought the last colony ship to the edge of mapped space, where red giant Kethra Prime cast its dying light across 7 barren worlds. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge, watching the mining planet Kethra grow larger in the viewport. Behind him, the ship's AI announced their final approach with mechanical precision. Population count, 4,733. Survivors, the AI reported. Fuel reserves, critical. Life support, holding at minimum operational capacity. Marcus nodded grimly. They had no choice but to land. The ship's engines wouldn't carry them to another system, and their hydroponics bays could barely sustain the population for another month. Kethra wasn't paradise, but it was habitable, and that made it more precious than any jewel in the galaxy. Colonists gathered in the cargo bays as the Defiant descended through Kethra's thin atmosphere. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the expedition's chief scientist, monitored atmospheric readings while engineering chief Tom Bradley coordinated the landing preparations. These weren't explorers or pioneers, they were survivors, carrying the weight of humanity's near extinction on their shoulders. The landing was rough but successful. Kethra's surface stretched before them like a rust-colored ocean, broken by jagged mountain ranges and the skeletal remains of ancient structures. The planet had been mined extensively in the distant past, leaving behind a honeycomb of tunnels and vast open pits. Most importantly, it had breathable air, liquid water, and mineral deposits that could sustain a colony. "Home sweet home," Tom muttered, surveying the desolate landscape through the viewports. Marcus organized the colonists into work crews. Some dismantled sections of the Defiant to create prefabricated shelters, while others explored the immediate area for resources. Dr. Vasquez led a team into the ancient ruins, discovering technology that predated any known civilization. The structures were massive, built from materials that seemed to absorb light itself. "These ruins are millions of years old," Elena reported during their first evening briefing. "The builders were gone long before the first sapient species achieved spaceflight. But there's something else. The mineral composition here is unlike anything in our databases. The entire planet is rich in rare elements." The colonists worked with desperate efficiency. They established a perimeter on their landing site, converted cargo containers into living quarters, and began mining operations to extract the materials they needed for permanent structures. The work was backbreaking, but it gave them purpose. For the first time since fleeing Earth, they were building something instead of simply surviving. Marcus found himself changed by the responsibility. As captain of the Defiant, he had been a leader by necessity. Now as the de facto governor of humanity's last outpost, he became something more. He walked among the colonists, listening to their concerns, making decisions that would determine their survival. The weight of 4,000 lives pressed down on him, but he carried it willingly. 2 weeks into their settlement, the first alien contact occurred. A sleek vessel descended from the stars, its hull gleaming with an oily iridescence. It landed just beyond the human perimeter, and 3 figures emerged. They were tall, insectoid beings with crystalline exoskeletons that reflected the red light of Kethra Prime. The aliens approached under a flag of parley, their movements precise and calculated. Marcus met them at the settlement's edge, flanked by Tom and Elena. The lead alien spoke through a translation device, its voice a harmony of clicks and whistles. "I am Coordinator Vex of the Hegemony Third Fleet," the alien announced. "This world falls under Hegemony jurisdiction. You will evacuate immediately." Marcus felt his blood run cold. The Hegemony was legendary, a vast empire that had conquered hundreds of systems, enslaving or exterminating any species that opposed them. They had destroyed Earth's colonies one by one, driving humanity to the brink of extinction. "We're not looking for trouble," Marcus replied carefully. "We're just trying to survive." "Humans are classified as a pest species," Vex continued with mechanical indifference. "Your presence here is temporary. You have 72 hours to depart." The aliens departed as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving the colonists in stunned silence. Marcus called an emergency council meeting, bringing together the settlement's leaders. The reality was stark. They had nowhere to run, no fuel to escape, and no weapons capable of fighting a galactic empire. "We knew this day would come," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the fear in his heart. "Earth is gone. The colonies are gone. We're all that's left of humanity, and we're not going anywhere. Every great journey starts with a few brave explorers. Sci-fi stellar conflict is just beginning, and your support means everything. If you're hungry for HFY battles and tales of human valor against alien might, hit subscribe, it's free, and it helps us bring these frontlines to you." Tom pounded his fist on the table. "Then we fight. We've got mining explosives, some old military weapons from the ship's armory, and 4,000 people who have nothing left to lose." Alina nodded slowly. "The ruins, there might be something we can use. The technology is ancient, but it's far more advanced than anything the hegemony has shown us." Marcus looked around the table at the faces of Earth's last defenders. They were miners, engineers, doctors, and farmers, not soldiers. But they were also survivors, forged in the crucible of humanity's darkest hour. As he met their eyes, he saw something that made his heart swell with unexpected pride. They were afraid, but they were not broken. They were outnumbered, but they were not defeated. They were the last of their kind, but they were not alone. They had each other, and they had something the hegemony could never understand. They had nothing left to lose, and everything to fight for. The hegemony scouts returned exactly 72 hours later, their ships cutting through Kethra's atmosphere like silver daggers. Marcus watched from the command post as 12 assault craft descended toward the human settlement. Each vessel carried a full combat squad, nearly 200 elite hegemony warriors against 4,000 untrained civilians. "All units, this is command," Marcus spoke into his communicator. "Execute Protocol Defiance." The colonists had spent 3 days preparing for this moment. They had turned their settlement into a maze of defensive positions, using the mining equipment to create bunkers and trenches. The ancient ruins provided natural cover, their dark stone walls impervious to energy weapons. Most importantly, they had studied their enemy. The hegemony forces landed in standard formation, deploying in open ground where their superior firepower could dominate the battlefield. They advanced with mechanical precision, their crystalline armor gleaming in the red sunlight. Coordinator Vex led the assault, confident in his force's overwhelming advantage. The first human trap triggered when the aliens reached the settlement's outer perimeter. Tom's engineering crews had rigged the mining charges throughout the approach routes, creating a network of buried explosives. The detonation sent shockwaves through the hegemony formation, shattering their perfect ranks and filling the air with dust and debris. "Now!" Marcus shouted into his communicator. The colonists emerged from their hidden positions like ghosts. They had no uniforms, no standardized weapons, no formal training. What they had was desperation, ingenuity, and an absolute refusal to surrender. Dr. Vasquez had modified their mining lasers into crude but effective weapons. The maintenance crews had converted industrial equipment into mobile firing platforms. Even the medical staff fought, using their knowledge of anatomy to target the aliens' vulnerable joints. The hegemony forces had expected a quick slaughter. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a nightmarish urban battle against enemies who seemed to appear from nowhere. The humans used the settlement's infrastructure against them, channeling the alien advance into predetermined kill zones while maintaining multiple escape routes. Marcus coordinated the defense from the central command post, using the settlement's communication network to direct his forces. He had no formal military training, but he possessed something more valuable, an intimate knowledge of his people and their capabilities. He knew that Elena's science team could calculate firing solutions faster than any targeting computer. He knew that Tom's engineers could improvise solutions to problems that would stump a trained tactician. The battle raged for 6 hours. The hegemony forces pushed deeper into the settlement, their advanced weapons carving through human defenses. But for every position they captured, they paid a terrible price. The humans fought with a ferocity that shocked the aliens, using tactics that defied conventional military doctrine. When the hegemony finally breached the command center, they found only empty rooms and abandoned equipment. The entire human force had vanished into the ancient ruins, leaving behind a maze of booby traps and false positions. Coordinator Vex realized too. Late that he had been fighting shadows while the real enemy prepared their final gambit. The counterattack came at sunset. The humans emerged from the ruins in coordinated groups, each team targeting specific alien units. They had spent the day studying hegemony tactics, learning their weaknesses, adapting their strategies. Elena's team had discovered that the aliens' crystalline armor was vulnerable to specific frequencies, and they had modified their weapons accordingly. Marcus led the primary assault, his makeshift militia moving with the coordination of a veteran military unit. They hit the hegemony forces from multiple directions, using the terrain to their advantage. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing when they couldn't establish clear lines of fire or coordinate their movements. The tide turned when Tom's engineering team captured one of the alien assault craft. Within minutes, they had reverse-engineered its weapon systems and turned its guns against the hegemony forces. The psychological impact was devastating. The aliens had never faced an enemy capable of adapting their technology so quickly. Coordinator Vex called for evacuation as his forces crumbled around him. The surviving hegemony warriors retreated to their ships, leaving behind nearly half their number. As the alien craft lifted off, Marcus stood among the ruins of his settlement, surrounded by his battered but victorious people. Status report. He called to his team leaders. 43 casualties, Elena reported, her voice heavy with exhaustion. But we held. We actually held. Tom kicked at a piece of alien equipment. They'll be back, and next time they'll bring more ships. Marcus nodded grimly. The victory was significant, but it was only the beginning. The hegemony would not tolerate such a defeat, especially from a species they considered inferior. The real war was about to begin, and the humans would need every advantage they could find. As the colonists began salvaging alien technology and treating their wounded, Marcus felt a change in the air. These people were no longer refugees or civilians. They had faced the galaxy's most feared military force and emerged victorious. They had discovered something about themselves that even they hadn't known existed. They were warriors now, forged in the fire of desperate battle. And they were ready for whatever came next. News of the human victory spread through the hegemony like wildfire. In the crystalline spires of the capital world, High Coordinator Zeke convened an emergency session of the War Council. The holographic displays showed the aftermath of the battle. On Kethera, nearly 100 elite warriors defeated by primitive refugees. "This is impossible," declared War Leader Quinn, his exoskeleton clicking with agitation. "The battle records must be corrupted. No inferior species could achieve such results." High Coordinator Zek studied the tactical reports with growing unease. The humans had displayed capabilities that contradicted every assumption about their species. They had adapted alien technology in hours, coordinated complex maneuvers without centralized command, and demonstrated a level of tactical innovation that exceeded hegemony standards. "Issue a Priority 1 mobilization order," Zek commanded. "Deploy the 5th Battle Fleet to the Kethera system. These humans will be eliminated before they can spread their contamination to other worlds." Meanwhile, on Kethera's surface, the transformation had already begun. The human settlement expanded into the ancient ruins, using the alien structures as both shelter and fortress. Dr. Elena Vasquez led teams of researchers in unlocking the secrets of the precursor technology, while Tom Bradley organized massive mining operations to extract the rare minerals buried beneath the planet's surface. That Marcus found himself changing along with his people. The desperate refugee captain had evolved into something far more dangerous, a strategic mastermind who could see patterns and possibilities that others missed. He established a command structure that utilized every colonist's skills, creating specialized units for different aspects of their defense. "The hegemony's strength comes from their standardization," Marcus explained to his council during their daily briefing. "Every world they conquer, every species they subjugate, gets absorbed into their machine. They can't adapt because they don't need to, they just apply overwhelming force." Elena nodded, her attention split between the tactical discussion and the alien artifacts spread across her workstation. That's their weakness. They've never faced an enemy that could match their technology while maintaining tactical flexibility. The colonists worked with driven intensity. They had 47 days before the hegemony battle fleet arrived, and they intended to make every hour count. The mining operations expanded into the planet's core, where they discovered veins of a previously unknown mineral that seemed to amplify energy fields. Elena's team dubbed it Resonance Crystal, and it became the foundation of their defensive strategy. Tom's engineers built foundries in the deep tunnels, using the heat from Kethra's core to forge weapons and armor from the resonance crystal. The material was incredibly versatile. It could channel energy, store power, and even disrupt alien technology when properly configured. Within weeks, every human on Kethra carried weapons that surpassed standard hegemony equipment. The ancient ruins provided their own advantages. The precursor structures were built from materials that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime, making them nearly indestructible. The humans converted vast chambers into workshops, barracks, and command centers. The ruins' geometry defied conventional understanding, creating spaces that were larger inside than outside, and passages that seemed to lead to different locations. Depending on the traveler's intent, Marcus established training programs that turned miners into soldiers, doctors into tacticians, and scientists into weapons specialists. But the most important development was psychological. The humans had tasted victory against impossible odds, and it had awakened something primal in their nature. They no longer saw themselves as the last remnants of a dying species. They were the vanguard of humanity's resurrection. Dr. Vasquez made a breakthrough in the third week of preparation. Deep within the ruins, she discovered a chamber containing what appeared to be a vast library of crystallized information. The precursor data included detailed star maps, technological specifications, and historical records spanning millions of years. "This changes everything," Alina announced during the evening briefing. The precursors weren't just advanced, they were the first species to achieve true galactic civilization. And they left behind instructions for anyone capable of understanding them. The precursor technology was beyond anything the hegemony possessed. It included weapons that could manipulate matter at the molecular level, shields that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, and communication systems that operated faster than light. More importantly, it included tactical doctrines developed during wars that spanned entire galactic arms. Marcus studied the tactical data with growing excitement. The precursors had faced enemies similar to the hegemony, vast empires that relied on numerical superiority and technological standardization. The solution was always the same: create small, highly mobile forces that could adapt faster than the enemy could respond. "We're not building an army," Marcus realized. "We're building a legion." The concept was revolutionary. Instead of matching the hegemony's massive fleets with comparable forces, the humans would create elite units capable of independent operation. Each legion would combine the best elements of human adaptability with precursor technology, creating forces that could operate behind enemy lines, coordinate with local resistance movements, and strike at the hegemony's weakest points. Tom's engineering teams began construction of the first Legion equipment-powered armor that enhanced human capabilities while providing protection against alien weapons. The armor incorporated resonance crystal arrays that could adapt to different threats, making each legionnaire effectively immune to standard hegemony tactics. As the days passed, the humans transformed from desperate survivors into something the galaxy had never seen. They combined their species' natural adaptability with advanced technology, creating a fusion that exceeded the sum of its parts. The ancient ruins echoed with the sounds of construction, training, and preparation. Marcus stood in the command center, watching his people work with relentless determination. They had begun this journey as refugees, fleeing the destruction of their homeworld. Now they were becoming something far more significant, the catalyst for the hegemony's downfall. The battle fleet was coming, carrying enough firepower to sterilize a dozen worlds. But the humans were ready. They had forged themselves into weapons of war, and they were eager to test their edge against the galaxy's greatest empire. The hegemony 5th Battle Fleet emerged from hyperspace with overwhelming force, 300 warships carrying over 2 million troops. High Admiral Thane commanded the fleet from the dreadnought Inevitable, confident that such massive firepower would eliminate the human problem permanently. Long-range sensors showed a heavily fortified world, but no force could withstand the full might of a hegemony battle fleet. "Begin orbital bombardment," Thane ordered. "Sterilize the surface. Leave nothing alive." The fleet's primary weapons charged with deadly purpose, but before they could fire, something unprecedented happened. Ships began emerging from hyperspace. Throughout the system, not hegemony vessels, but a motley collection of alien craft from dozens of different species. They were led by a massive vessel that registered as human design, but incorporated technology that the hegemony databases couldn't identify. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Defiant Reborn, watching the enemy fleet through enhanced displays. The past months had transformed not just his ship, but his entire perspective. The vessel had been rebuilt using precursor technology and resonance crystal arrays, creating a command platform that could coordinate operations across multiple star systems simultaneously. "All units, this is Legion Command," Marcus broadcast on multiple frequencies. "Welcome to the fight for freedom." The alien vessels responded with a chorus of voices in dozens of languages, but the message was universal. They had come to fight, alongside the humans who had dared to challenge the hegemony's supremacy. These were representatives of species that had suffered under alien rule, rebels who had waited generations for someone to light the flame of resistance. The coalition had been months in the making. As word of the human victory spread through the underground networks, oppressed species throughout the galaxy began reaching out. They offered resources, intelligence, and most importantly, personnel. The humans had become a symbol of hope for everyone who had ever dreamed of freedom from hegemony rule. Captain Roth of the Centauri Resistance Fleet opened communications with the human command ship. His people had been the first to make contact, offering their expertise in guerrilla warfare and their knowledge of hegemony tactics. "The 7th Liberation Squadron reports ready for battle," he announced. Commander Kala of the Vegan Republic followed suit. Her species had been fighting a losing war against the hegemony for 20 years, but the human victory had inspired them to make one final stand. "All Republic forces are at your disposal," she transmitted. The most surprising addition to the coalition was battle leader Nexus, a former hegemony officer whose species had been enslaved for so long that they had forgotten their original name. He had defected after witnessing the human victory recordings, bringing with him detailed intelligence on hegemony fleet tactics and weapon systems. "The hegemony believes in overwhelming force," Nexus explained during the pre-battle briefing. "They deploy in standard formations, rely on superior firepower, and expect their enemies to break under pressure. They have never faced a coordinated multi-species resistance." Marcus studied the tactical displays, seeing not just the enemy fleet, but the possibilities for victory. The humans had spent months training with their alien allies, learning their strengths and capabilities. The Centauri excelled at hit-and-run tactics, the vegans possessed superior shielding technology, and the former hegemony slaves knew exactly where to strike for maximum effect. "This is no longer about survival," Marcus announced to the combined fleet. "Today, we begin the liberation of the galaxy." The battle began with High Admiral Thane's attempt at orbital bombardment. The hegemony fleet unleashed devastating firepower against Kethra's surface, but the energy simply vanished into the planet's resonance crystal formations. The humans had turned the entire world into a massive absorption array, capable of channeling and redirecting energy on a planetary scale. The stored energy erupted back at the hegemony fleet in the form of coherent particle beams that punched through their heaviest armor. Dozens of warships vanished in brilliant explosions, their crews never understanding how their own weapons had been turned against them. "Impossible," Thane snarled, ordering his fleet to scatter. "Deploy all fighter squadrons. Begin close range engagement." The hegemony forces moved with practiced efficiency, but they found themselves facing tactics they had never encountered. The human-led coalition split into small task forces, each combining different species capabilities in ways that created unexpected synergies. Centauri stealth ships appeared behind hegemony lines, while vegan heavy cruisers provided mobile fire support for human boarding parties. Marcus led the primary assault personally, taking a strike team aboard the Defiant Reborn to engage the enemy flagship. His ship had been redesigned as a mobile command platform, capable of coordinating the entire battle while providing direct fire support. The resonance crystal arrays allowed him to maintain real-time communication with every unit in the coalition, creating a level of tactical coordination that the hegemony couldn't match. The boarding action was fierce but brief. The human legionnaires wore powered armor that incorporated the best technology from multiple species: Centauri stealth systems, vegan energy shields, and human adaptability. They moved through the enemy ship like a force of nature, adapting to every defensive measure the hegemony could deploy. High Admiral Thane found himself facing Marcus in the flagship's command center, his crystalline armor sparking with energy discharges. The alien officer was larger and stronger than any human, but he had never faced an enemy who could think 3 steps ahead of every move. "Your species is nothing," Thane hissed. "Primitives who stumbled upon ancient technology. You cannot defeat the might of the hegemony." Marcus smiled grimly, his powered armor systems calculating the optimal strike pattern. "We're not trying to defeat you," he replied. "We're trying to free the galaxy from you." The battle in space continued for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The coalition forces fought with a coordination and adaptability that the hegemony couldn't counter. Every defeated enemy ship provided intelligence for the next engagement. Every successful tactic was immediately shared across the fleet. When the surviving hegemony forces finally retreated, they left behind nearly 2/3 of their fleet. The humans and their allies had achieved something unprecedented. They had defeated a full hegemony battle fleet in open combat. As the coalition fleets regrouped around Kethera, Marcus felt the weight of what they had accomplished. This was no longer a desperate fight for survival. They had become the nucleus of something far greater, a galactic resistance movement that could challenge the hegemony's supremacy. The humans had found their purpose among the stars. They were no longer Earth's refugees but the galaxy's liberators, and they were just getting started. The victory at Kethera sent shockwaves through the hegemony power structure. For the first time in their expansionist history, a major battle fleet had been defeated by inferior species. High Coordinator Zek convened an emergency session of the Supreme Council where panic and disbelief competed with calls for overwhelming retaliation. "The human contamination is spreading," reported Intelligence Director Voss, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. 7 systems have declared independence. Resistance movements are organizing across 12 sectors. The very concept of successful rebellion is inspiring uprisings throughout our territory. Zek studied the tactical displays with growing alarm. The humans had accomplished something that military doctrine claimed was impossible. They had turned a species' weakness into a strategic advantage. Their ability to adapt and coordinate with other species had created a force that the hegemony couldn't counter using conventional tactics. "Deploy the First Imperial Fleet," Zek commanded. "Every available warship, every elite unit, every weapon in our arsenal. The humans must be eliminated before their influence spreads further." The hegemony's response was massive beyond comprehension. Over 2,000 warships converged on the Kethera system, carrying enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. The First Imperial Fleet represented the combined might of a galactic empire, commanded by Supreme Admiral Corex, the most successful military leader in hegemony history. Marcus watched the enemy fleets approach from the command center deep within Kethera's transformed surface. The planet had become something unprecedented, a fortress world that combined human ingenuity with precursor technology and multi-species cooperation. The ancient ruins had been converted into a vast military complex, while the resonance crystal formations turned the entire planet into a weapon system. "They're bringing everything they have," reported Dr. Alina Vasquez, her attention split between tactical displays and the precursor archives. 2,000 capital ships, 50,000 support vessels, and over 100 million troops. Tom Bradley grimaced as he reviewed the engineering reports. "Our defenses are strong, but we can't match that level of firepower. Even with the resonance crystal arrays, we're looking at a siege that could last years." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. The humans had learned valuable lessons during their months of preparation. They couldn't win this battle through conventional tactics. They needed to think beyond traditional warfare. The precursor archives had provided insights into conflicts that spanned galactic civilizations, and the solution was always the same. Turn the enemy's strength against them. "We're not going to fight them," Marcus announced. "We're going to convert them." The concept was audacious beyond measure. Instead of trying to defeat the hegemony fleet, the humans would use their greatest strength, the ability to inspire and coordinate with other species. Hidden within the massive Imperial fleet were millions of enslaved soldiers from dozens of conquered worlds, forced to fight for their oppressors under threat of planetary destruction. The Human Legion had spent months preparing for this moment. They had established communication networks throughout hegemony space, coordinating with resistance movements and enslaved populations. Now, as the enemy fleet approached, they activated a plan that would turn the invasion into a liberation. "All units, this is Legion Command," Marcus broadcast on frequencies that reached every ship in the Imperial fleet. "Today we break the chains that have bound the galaxy for centuries. Today we choose freedom over servitude, hope over despair. Today we rise." The message was transmitted in hundreds of languages, reaching the enslaved crews aboard hegemony vessels. But it wasn't just words. The humans had developed a new form of communication that transcended language barriers. The resonance crystal. Technology allowed them to transmit emotions, concepts, and tactical information directly to any receptive mind. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Across the Imperial fleet, enslaved crews began turning on their hegemony overseers. The ship's corridors became battlegrounds as oppressed species fought for their freedom, using weapons and tactics provided by human intelligence networks. Supreme Admiral Corex watched in horror as his fleet tore itself apart from within. Entire squadrons went dark as their crews overthrew their commanders, while others broadcast messages of defiance on open channels. The precision formations that had conquered 1,000 worlds dissolved into chaos as ships began firing on each other. "This is impossible," Corex snarled, ordering his remaining loyal units to open fire on the rebellious vessels. "No species can coordinate such a massive uprising." But the humans had done exactly that. They had turned the hegemony's greatest strength, their massive fleets of enslaved soldiers, into a weapon against their oppressors. The rebellion spread like wildfire through the Imperial fleet, as species that had been enemies for generations united against their common oppressors. The battle for Kethra became something unprecedented in galactic history. The humans led a coalition of liberated species against the remaining hegemony forces, coordinating tactics that combined the strengths of dozens of different civilizations. The resonance crystal arrays amplified their coordination abilities, allowing them to maintain real-time communication across the entire battlefield. Marcus led the primary assault aboard the Defiant Reborn, now supported by hundreds of captured hegemony vessels. His ship had evolved into something beyond conventional design, part warship, part command center, part symbol of hope for every enslaved species in the galaxy. The final confrontation came when the human fleet surrounded the hegemony flagship. Domination, Supreme Admiral Corex's personal command vessel. The ship was a monument to Imperial power, bristling with weapons and protected by shields that could deflect planetary bombardment. "Surrender now, and your crews will be treated with honor," Marcus broadcast to the enemy flagship. "Continue fighting, and you'll face the combined wrath of every species you've oppressed." Corex's response was a concentrated barrage from every weapon on his ship. The Domination was a fortress in space, but it faced enemies who fought with the fury of the righteous and the coordination of the truly free. The human-led coalition absorbed the punishment and replied with tactics that the hegemony had never encountered. The battle lasted for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The Imperial fleet that had arrived to destroy the human rebellion was converted into the nucleus of a galactic liberation movement. When the Domination finally fell, its destruction sent a message that reached every corner of the galaxy. The hegemony could be defeated. As the surviving hegemony forces retreated, leaving behind the wreckage of their empire's greatest fleet, Marcus stood in the command center and felt the weight of what they had accomplished. The humans had not just survived, they had become the catalyst for galactic liberation. The message spread through hyperspace networks, reaching every enslaved world and oppressed species in the galaxy. The humans had proven that freedom was possible, that even the mightiest empire could be challenged by those who refused to surrender. From the ashes of Earth's destruction, humanity had forged something greater than they had ever been before. They had become the galaxy's most feared legion, not through conquest or domination, but through their ability to inspire others to fight for their freedom. The age of the hegemony was ending, and the age of liberation had begun. And at its heart stood the survivors of Earth, who had transformed from desperate refugees into the most powerful force in the galaxy, the force of hope itself.